So the other day, I um I went. There was an annoying advertisement on YouTube for a new insurance company startup. And by the way, I like to insure things. I know not a lot of people do, but it's come in handy more than a few times as far as insurance is concerned. Actually paying for it, it's been a lifesaver at numerous occasions. It saved me a bunch of money. So I tend to prefer it, but they were offering insurance for iPhones, and they were basically pestering us all by saying that you were paying too much for their insurance. And so I had to go into the comment section and write, I need one. It doesn't matter what the price ultimately is. I need, insurance for an old iPhone 11 that will tolerate jailbreaking. And I get made fun of in the comment section by this guy who's an Android enthusiast, and he's, just throwing dirt at me, all like, I can't. I'm just laughing at you. Ultimately, trying to turn your phone into something that any stock Android phone can actually do. And I'm, sitting there, like, all I can think is, I already have the phone, and regardless of what I think about the phone in particular or my sentiments regarding it, the truth of the matter is that there's always some Apple fanboy and idiot that you can sell it to on eBay, who loves these particular products. Mine, on the other hand, was a gift that I just kind of received for being my mother's child, and it was just thrown on me. But maybe you shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth or and such, but I've got really strong sentiments about which particular flavor of phone that I prefer. And I my my main box, my new computer, it's out there in the living room, and it's got 128 gigabytes of DDR4 memory, and it's like all rammed up, and it's got a 38 3080 Ti, RTX NVIDIA, and an AMD, like the 16 core top of the line from Zen 3, the Zen 3 line in it. And I know Zen 4 is out, but yeah, it's all, it's quite the beast of a machine, and it's got a nice big powerful power supply in it and everything else, and it's running Gen 2 Linux. And I think I should probably tell you everything that you need to know if you know the specifics of Gen 2, and just how all consuming the customizability of the operating system actually happens to be, that you would understand why I fucking despise Apple products. I have been very public about it. I've gone back and forth, and then I finally have ultimately settled on what my next phone, when the budget that I have will be able to afford it, will ultimately be. And it's I would say the Librem 5, but who knows? Maybe there's going to be a 6 by that point. It's a Linux phone, and the reason why I've chosen it in particular is that I just don't do gaming on my mobile device. I just don't think that mobile games are worth it. And I mean, I do maybe have a few of them on my phone that I only turn to in extreme boredom, when there's nothing else available, as like a last resort. But I don't really do them. They get ignored 98% of the time. They're not really being used, and it got me thinking about all this. And it's like, you Apple fanboys are all up and down about how you know how great the specs are on your phones and everything, and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about the fucking specs. It's the fact that the software on this pile of crap cannot be customized. So I'm talking to the insurance guys, and I'm just saying, I need one with a policy that will actually insure a jailbroken phone in case something like accidental happens to the hardware itself and not the software, which you will leave as my responsibility, which is why I would go to SquareTrade in the first place, because SquareTrade has a policy that allows you to do that, and this guy's laughing at me, and you know, the thought that that's occurring to me is something along the lines of, like I said, I mean, what am I supposed to do with this phone in the meantime while I'm waiting to transfer to a different device? And you know, it's got resale value. I mean, I don't want the device ultimately to get damaged between now and whenever I'm able to upgrade the damn thing, so that when I do, I can actually sell the damn thing to somebody who actually appreciates Apple products and, you know, actually likes them, because I don't. I mean, my opinion of Apple has really suffered. I prefer a device that I can literally just plug in and use as a hard drive, the way that you're able to with a Droid, and you don't have to go through any special, you know, Apple specific software to do it. I did, noteworthyly enough, though, find that somebody on the Linux side of the equation was trying to bring us Linux support for Apple's proprietary operating system, although the drivers that they're building are not really there yet. The PFF. And it's the Linux APFFs on GitHub, and it's very experimental at this point, and I've got no problem linking it in the underbar to you guys, because I think that this project in particular is at least noteworthy enough that talking about it would make this video like worth putting up here to call attention to this particular GitHub project that is being worked on. You know, the guys that are behind it. I think that one of the reasons why the guys are doing it is because law enforcement really needs to be able to do the same thing. They need to be able to read these devices, you know, but oh, hey. That's not a big edit, but yeah, they've been working. The guy behind it, Efer, you know, I've emailed him, and he's saying that he hasn't abandoned it. He's still working on it, but you know, it's coming along, and it's an interesting enough project that, you know, it would definitely grab my attention. You know, hopefully it will inevitably, you know, in the end, lead to us being able to read these devices the same way, at least from the Linux side of the equation. I mean, one of the things about file systems is that they always eventually, you know, end up, you know, being supported by Linux in the end, you know, like, so I have to answer questions nowadays about like what Linux can do that Windows can't. And you know, people come to me since I became a Linux fan, and they ask me questions like that. They ask me like, you know, why, what can it do that Windows can't? And it's like, I have a direct answer to these questions now. It's like, I you know, if I were to rewind the clock and talk about ZNES, which was, from my vantage point, the best Super Nintendo emulator that was ever written, you know, ZNES is supported on Gen 2. You can compile it and run it, and it, you know, it works just fine. And you know, on top of that, like, there's an emulator for the PlayStation 4 called Spine, and it's you know, it's let me just put it like this: it's further along in development than anything else that's been released on the Windows side of the equation. And the guy that is behind it is kind of like inhuman in how fast he gets new code and out and pushed into the project. He's very fast at it, and you know, with some great enthusiasm and everything. And it's called Spine, and you know, it's basically the furthest along of any of them, and it's Linux only. You know, Windows people apparently can get stepped on, you know, from his vantage point, and it's okay. I mean, I run a Linux box because, you know, one of the things that appeals is universal binary compatibility, whether it's, you know, Windows or, you know, Linux. I mean, the guys that are over there, like a lot of the hackers will only release code, or they'll release a better version of the code, you know, the hacking tools for the Linux side of the equation, and having, literally universal binary compatibility is one of the reasons why, like, I run the two systems that I do, one of them on Windows and one of them on Linux. It's what appeals about it, to be honest with you, as the use case is concerned over here. That's why I like it. And I just recently bought a Logitech controller to try to enhance the emulation experience. I mean, I run some of these Nintendo Project emulators. I'm a fan of emulation. To be honest with you, if I could play on just about anything, I would almost always prefer to play on the emulator, just because of the fact that you get features that you just would not get on, the actual hardware, as a result. And, I have slowly migrated, towards being a tech tinker. I haven't always been that way. I may have been with the "it just works" crowd a while back, but nowadays it's like, I don't really care if there's some setup work required from the end user who has to configure things and, mess with the config files and set them up the way that, they would like the system set up and everything. And, you know, um, certainly, I've gotten more and more that way over time, because I've had to do it so many times on the Linux side of the equation, that it's just like, now it's just like, oh, fuck it, it's not a big deal anymore if you have to go in and edit some text file to do something. But, I'm a Gen 2 Linux enthusiast. I use it. I mean, I've got an operating system out there in the living room that I literally I had to learn a whole shitload of stuff, like editing the XIRT file, and then, entering exit exec, xface, or xfce into the thing, and, telling it to boot that up from the TTY side of the equation, where it's all just text, and you have to tell it, every time I boot my system, it boots to a pure text, command line, and I have to type in start xfce4 into the thing to get a graphical environment in the first place. That's, but ZNES runs on it, and the last version of Windows that I can confirm as an end user was able to run ZNES was Windows 98. Now, I don't know about 2000. I don't know about XP. Iffy maybe categories and everything. I'm really not sure about that. So you've got the best Nintendo, Super Nintendo emulator that I've ever actually used over there on Linux. You've got one of the best PlayStation 4 emulators that is out there. Most of the emulators these days have compatibility with Linux too. They're usually built with cross-platform, capabilities. A bit of an education too for you. Vulkan and Proton are both, the ways that we're emulating some of the graphical engines behind, some of these other projects. And I'm slightly amused myself because, as you well know, I'm a pirate, and, like, seeing that, although it's not as if I don't actually have my own, they're within budget and everything, but, as you can well see, if you can see the back of it, there's an SD card in the back that's a 1 terabyte, filled with, games and everything. So I have mine, and it's definitely an older version of it that can be easily hacked, and, I got it via the eBay ecosystem, in order to jailbreak the damn thing. But I still, I'm a pretty big fan of emulators, and, I miss, although in the old versions, save states, but, hey, you kind of sucks that those have gone away in some of the more modern ones. But, they were saying that they would require a huge amount of space on the drive to do it, and it just wasn't worth it, and a huge amount of processing power as well to actually do it. So it was kind of scrapped in the later, emulators that came after the NES, the SNES, so that was just the reality. But yeah, I would very much prefer to play on an emulator, just because of the fact that there is the implementation of features that you just don't get anywhere else. And so, yeah, I mean, I got the Logitech controller. I hate though. I mean, I really do, and it strikes me that I'm not really looking for. I guess you could say a system that just works the way that so many people have come up to me and been like, "Well, that's what I like about Apple." I use an Apple device and it just works, and I'm just like, no, I want something that I can customize to my own ends. And if that means that it requires a bit of setup from me and it requires a bit of work from me to get running just the way that I want it to run, fuck it, that's exactly what I want. I don't care anymore. I don't mind having to do that stuff. I mean, if I could actually show you, and I mean, maybe I'll when I upload this, I'll put it in a pastebin file, pastebin it to you and show you the configuration file that I run, on my copy of MPV. You'll see that. And so, I've gathered a couple links and things to put in the underbar to this whole thing to talk about this. But this is exactly why I'm going with the fucking Librem, because it's just like, I don't like the direction that the tech industry has moved in. I think that, going with them in particular is, kind of a way to signal a fuck you with my wallet to the direction that things have been going in the tech space, and as a vote against it. I mean, and I'm trying to say at this point that it's all software. Like, your specs are completely and utterly meritless and irrelevant. It doesn't matter. The Librem may not be as fast as the other two competitors and everything, but I don't even play games on my phone as it is. And so I want one that is fully unlockable, that I can do what I want with. And I don't have to, get permission from Apple or Samsung to make the modification, required that I would like to make to my goddamn phone. And, that's why the Librem project appeals. And the fact that it's using older hardware, well, that means detachable batteries. And the great part about that is that you can get like 20 of them, and then when one dies, well, hey, you've got another one on you, instead of having these internal batteries that, are tethered to something. And maybe you can get an external, thing that can charge it. But, best of luck if those things actually work. It's a crapshoot. So I hate Apple. I hate them. They will not let me actually configure my device the way that I want to configure it. It's all, you're going to set things up the way that we have set up, and fuck you if you want to deviate from that at all. And so I literally despise them, and I fucking hate that every time there's a change to the hardware, what happens? Samsung does the same fucking thing. Apple is taking the tech industry down the toilet. It is taking it in the wrong direction entirely. It is a regressive setback to the tech space. They are horrible. And if there's anybody that really is the unsung hero of the company, it's Steve Wozniak, who I have an affection for despite all of my hatred of the company, because of the fact that Steve Wozniak is a tech enthusiast. He is not into technology because he wants to make money. He got involved with a tech project that eventually struck gold, and so now he uses his fortune to do things like, fun tech education programs for people that want to enter the IT space, So I like Woz, but that's about it. I fucking hate the company that made him rich. I do. I don't have any affection for them. I want a phone that is fully customizable. And if that means that I have to put some effort into it, so be it.